Hi, my name is Christina Grozik, and I'm with a documentary called Going which is a journey exploring the world of sound and how we use it. So, to keep the dialogue on sound going, I've been talking with different people about how they use sound and why that matters. So, today, here with me, I have Gary Boss from Audio-Technica. Hi, Gary. How are you?
Howdy, howdy, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. And I know you are in the film, but we had so much footage. We wish we could have just dedicated an entire segment to that. But I know you are in the film and showing us some really groovy things there. But I thought, we should have a much more extended dialogue on that because there's so much to cover. So
Awesome.
can you tell us a little bit about, I want to talk about sound, I want to talk about Audio Technica, and then I want to switch it over maybe to another topic, right? But we'll get
Dig
to
it.
that in a bit. So can you tell us what Audio Technica does? What do you guys do exactly?
Yeah, cool. And to do that, we kind of have to go maybe take a step back to our origin, which the company was started in Japan in 1962, and it wasn't what you would consider like a typical Japanese company where it was like a big organization and they did this thing and we want to attack this market. Our founder essentially was an art curator in Japan at the Bridgestone Museum. And he loved art and he loved music, and he would have concerts. And concerts in Japan were very different because people couldn't listen to their hi-fi systems in their small apartments. He would actually play records at the museum. And through this connection with the patrons and allowing them to hear at that time was high fidelity music, he began tinkering with phono cartridges and created a new phono cartridge design, which was much higher fidelity than the stuff at the time. So essentially, a phono cartridge is a transducer. So a transducer is you're just converting one form of energy to another form of energy. In this case, we're wiggling a little stylus and spitting out the other side is an electrical signal that you can amplify. So Audio Technica at its core is a transducer company. That's what we do. We just convert one form of energy to another. Now, another transducer is what I'm wearing here is a headphone. So essentially, we put current into this and we wiggle a thing called a diaphragm and it produces sound that we can hear. And another transducer is this microphone. So this microphone has a little thin film and it picks up the sound waves and it wiggles and it creates an electrical signal that we can then translate into audio for my voice. So really, microphones, phono cartridges, headphones, they're all pretty much the same thing. They're just taking energy and transferring it to another form of energy. And that's what we do in a nutshell.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you for that. And I'm really glad you broke that down so nicely. And I'm really glad that the terms that you use, because when you first said them, I'm like, well, what is that? Those
Right.
are some of my questions. So thank you for defining those
Yeah,
for
no problem. So
yes.
we've spun that into this into a big market where we do specialize in the phono industry, which has now come back. We, believe it or not, sell a ton of record players and phonograph cartridges. We do microphones for live sound and events like major sporting events and the presidential debates and the Grammys and house of worship and corporate and install. And we make gaming headsets, which this is. So really anywhere that audio is either picked up or played back, we have kind of our finger in that market.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know you had mentioned about the electrical signal and it's really interesting. I mean, it all comes down to everything is energy, everything has a vibration to it.
100%.
Yeah, and you guys specialize in that aspect and in that area. But let's get to this. So I think in the actual film, we had you in a chamber, right? A chamber
Yes.
called the anechoic chamber. So can you tell us what that is?
I can. And the nice thing is I'm not an engineer, but I've been with the company so long. I think I can talk about it in terms that don't like make people's eyes roll into their head and fall asleep. So, really, the anechoic chamber is, an meaning no echoes. So it's a room really with no echoes. And furthermore, Our anechoic chamber tends to be isolated from outside interference. So when you go into the chamber, the experience is not only one of dead silence, but when you do make a noise, there's nothing for that noise to echo back on. So there's no reverb. So it sounds very unsettling. Um, I can tell you the reason we do this for our instances is so we can measure things. So if we want to put a microphone in this chamber and we play a speaker at it and we measure the parameters of that microphone, we don't have external audio coming in and messing with the test results. And furthermore, what the microphone is picking up is what the speaker is playing. It's not echoing off the ceiling or the floor. The other thing I can tell you, it tends to be very unnerving for many people who have not experienced total silence. And for a stint here at Audio-Technica, I did artist relations. So I would deal with the bands and with the engineers primarily. And these engineers are mixing bands at very high levels every night. So they tend to have some hearing damage, and they would get in that anechoic chamber, and all of a sudden their tinnitus would creep in and they would go insane. Like they could not stand in there for more than a couple minutes without physically becoming uneasy and having to leave the room. So it's a different experience in there.
Yeah, I've actually, I think it's been deemed as like the quietest place on earth, right? Like anechoic chambers have been, because I've been told, and I wasn't there for that portion of the shoot, so
Right.
I wasn't able to experience it, but I've been told and I've heard that you can actually hear maybe like your blood flowing or your central nervous system or something like that. Have you encountered anything like that?
Yeah, so unfortunately we were in like pure COVID period at that time. So we did it kind of on the DL. But yeah, if you kind of focus and kind of like stay silent for a while, you definitely can hear the blood rushing through your ears. Um, I am not in tune with my body enough to like hear other functions of my body, but you definitely can hear your heartbeat just by standing still, which is pretty creepy to say the least.
Yeah, I think that would be so interesting. But to your point earlier, I've also heard that you can't really stay in that chamber for long periods of time.
Right.
That it takes a toll on the other way. So it's funny because in wellness, we talk about finding that stillness and that silence, right? But in the anechoic
Right.
chamber, that would take it to a whole different area that maybe we shouldn't be
Well,
encouraging.
the thing that I like to have people become attuned to, because I give a lot of tours of the building. We have people come in or whoever, vendors or whatever, and we'll go into the room and literally this is just a regular office building, and where our anechoic chambers sit are backed by our quality control. So it's, some people back there, but it's just normal ambient room noise. You go into the chamber and we'll be in there for a couple minutes. And one of the things I say when I open the door, just hear how loud what we would normally consider something quiet to be, because you open that door and you can just hear the noise build up to a point like we have noise all around us regardless of how quiet we think it is. So it's amazing like what on a daily basis we just are surrounded and bathed in from an audio perspective. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, so with that point, how important do you think sound and silence are in our own personal worlds?
Well, obviously it's sound is becoming everything, because unlike in the past, every all our feedback that we obtain from everything that we exist in is some kind of audio cue, whether it's our phone, whether it's our Alexa, whether it's our car, everything is giving us audio cues. In the past, that was not necessarily the case. So I think it's highly important. And then from a silence perspective, I think, a lot of this, I was thinking about this before, is very internalized and very personal to us. Like I, for example, love to go into nature and hear the insects and the crickets. If I go camping with my wife, she actually brings earplugs because it drives her insane. And something that I find to be very soothing and calming and puts me to sleep is something that will make her not be able to sleep. So I think there's a very personalized kind of experience that we have with sound.
Yeah, I love that you said that, and that's because you applied it to everyday life, right? So I know in doing sound healing work, sound baths, things of that nature, I'll have people, I tried that, I didn't really care for it. And I'm like, well, try it again with someone else because the energy
Right,
is a part of it and that establishes the foundation and it creates the space for it, right? But
right.
then different things resonate with different people. So
No
with your
question.
example of the camping and how you love those sounds and your wife doesn't, different things are going to resonate with different
Oh
people.
yeah.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Why do you think we're programmed in that way where, different sounds we are attracted to those and other sounds, not so much?
Well, this is something that I think a lot about based on my job, and I have two kind of theories. These are Gary theories. These are not scientific theories. So
Sure.
two things. One, I think part of it is on a reptilian brain perspective. For example, I think the fight or flight and uh, perceived threat, if I hear someone eating or crunching potato chips, whatever that frequency is, sets me off in like 2 seconds. And I've actually looked this up because it's such a wacky thing that I can't even understand it. But yeah, there are certain people who those sounds immediately trigger something. It's a visceral reaction I have, which is embarrassing. So I think that's in my reptilian brain. And that was something when I was, you would perceive a threat of sticks breaking or something, and you'd get all heightened and all jazzed up. The other part, I think, is more cultural, and it's the nature nurture kind of thing. And one of the things that we do is we have to what they call voice things. So no one would want a microphone that is completely flat. All people say they want a microphone that is flat frequency response, but they don't sound good. They don't sound natural. That's why we make hundreds of microphones and they all have different characteristics. Um, we're a Japanese company. We're selling in the US. And there are different preferences for sound in Japan and in the US. And I think that is language based. So Germanic languages, Germany, Europe, US, it's very guttural and very deep and assertive, where Japanese is much more sibilant and much more detailed and articulate. So as a result, like when you talk about audio, Western world tends to gravitate more to what they consider or perceive to be warm sounding products, a little more bass emphasis, and what we in the industry just call warm sounds, where in Japan they like more detailed and articulate and stuff that are tilted more high frequency, and they don't gravitate to the low frequency. So that's kind of the nurture side of this. And I think it's based on language. It's something that we hear every day and it becomes more familiar and pleasurable to us. So that's kind of my theory. So if you get audio equipment like speakers in Japan, they have a very different sound than like speakers from Europe or US or Canada. So there you go.
That is so interesting. That is so I've
Yeah,
never heard that before, but it makes so much sense. So it's we kind of gravitate towards the sounds that we've become familiar with, that we've been kind of programmed to understand and know what those are,
right.
possibly as a theory.
Yeah,
So
this is theory of Gary, but I'm certain if I did a deep dive on it, someone's already come up with this. And I invent. I'm like one of those guys. I invent a lot of things that have already been invented. I'm that guy, but I just didn't know about them, so I can say I invented it because I didn't know about it. So
and everyone's
that's me.
got their own take on it. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, so you're going to bring it in to light in a different way than someone else would. So I think
Correct.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's such a great explanation. So you had mentioned, and I know time wise we're getting close to the end here. So I know you had mentioned some of the sounds you like are crickets. What are some of your other favorite sounds?
Well, I tend I grew up as a drummer and played in a lot of bands. So I definitely gravitate more towards like fuller, richer, like low frequency type of sounds. So in a band, I like the bass guitar more so than I like the maybe guitar, which is more higher pitched. Um, Music, I love music and I never remember any lyrics, but I always remember the melody of the tune. And I would probably be good on that thing where like name this song in 3 notes. Like I'm really attuned to that, but I'll be damned if I can remember the lyrics because I'm not listening to the lyrics. So most people get this like emotional connection to the music because they're talking about love lost or, whatever. I have no idea what they're talking about. I connect more from just this, you know, instinctive attraction to the melodic side of the music. So it's just a little bit of insight into Gary.
That is awesome. Yeah, you would probably. I think Jimmy Fallon does a contest like that on his show where
Right, exactly.
you would be great at that.
Except for I wouldn't remember what the lyrics were. So I'm like, I know the song. I just have no idea what it is because I don't listen to the lyrics.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you would be a shoe-in for the medal at the end. So what advice would you give to somebody that wants to maybe enhance their relationship with sound? What is something that, being living and breathing sound every day and creating different ways that people can hear sound, right? What is some advice you would give to someone that's like, I really want to become more familiar of the sounds in my world and reevaluate my relationship with sound. What is some advice you
Wow,
give them?
that's really deep. That's stuff that you're supposed to answer. That's in your realm. What I can do is tell you how to listen to it better. I can tell you, there's a lot of audio that because poor equipment, we're missing out on a lot of the things that engineers, producers, or musicians have like recorded for us. It's kind of like looking at painting through dirty glasses. You don't get the full breadth of the painting. So I would recommend, getting the best audio equipment, but like really connecting with sound. That's really not my wheelhouse, Christina. I don't feel qualified to suggest that. However, I can tell people to take care of your hearing because as a drummer for so many years, I do have a persistent ringing in my ears, which is highly annoying. And given a talk to my younger self, I would have been much more sensitive to hearing protection and not exposing myself to those things. So that's what I can tell you. I can tell you how to make it more enjoyable for those younger listeners who have not destroyed their whole audio system in their brain.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, thank you. And I thought twice about it after we spent some time with an audiologist and then a surgeon as well. And
Right.
those are things like when you get into the detail of how the ear actually works. Now it's like if I hear a siren go by, I'm covering my ears
Oh
with
yeah.
a lawnmower. I'm like, when you start breaking off those little pieces and parts, it's like they all count and add up. So I think we have like maybe time for a really short question here because I know you have to go on another
Oh,
call.
no problem. Yeah.
How do you think sound's going to be used in the future?
Well, again, I think our physical interaction with devices will become less frequent. I am the proud owner of a new Tesla vehicle, and I can tell you that their user experience has changed to the point where you have much less manipulation physically with devices. We now have voice control in the vehicle. A lot of the alerts and warnings are audible rather than visual necessarily in the vehicle. So I think that's going to play a big part. I think companies are going to become much more sensitive um, to producing audio cues, which are not just branded, but more suggestive in what the tone is telling you. So I think the way that we will interact, and again, I'm a tech guy. I'm not like I'm not a singing bowl guy. So I'm coming at this from a tech side, but I think the way that we interact with these devices is going to be less tactile and more audible, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And just so you know, I mean, we're all using sound because we are
Of
sound,
course.
right? So yeah, it's like, these discussions, we're covering a different array of, professions and the ways that people use sound, right? Because it's all sound.
Oh yeah.
It's all vibration. So that's super valuable. I appreciate that. And you've given
Yeah.
me a lot to think about for sure.
Yay.
And even in terms of like how it's almost like Pavlov's dog, right? Where it's like a tone goes off. If our phone beeps, it's like, oh, gotta get it,
Oh
or
yeah.
anything else. We're like trained to sound. And I
Yep.
think you had said that earlier. And it's like, yes, yeah,
And I think a lot of that again comes from that kind of, brainstem kind of core, fight or flight, just basic human programming. So
yeah. That
people who tap into that, win.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go with that theory too, Gary. So thank you for
Love
sharing.
it. All right.
Yeah, that's really great. I know
Great.
I would love to see. I know how some cities have like dark cities where the lights are, kind
Hmm.
of shining down. I would love to see cities adopt something where we have like quiet hours in the city or quiet times or something like that.
Yeah. Amen.
That would be great. So yeah, I
Yeah.
know you have to go for another call.
Oh,
Thank
no
you
problem.
so very much for your time.
Great.
Thank you for everything. And we might have to do a part two to this because now I have like a whole nother set of questions for you.
Okay. Anytime.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
very, very
Great.
much.
Take
Okay.
care.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.